All right, welcome into Prize Picks on 5 here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. It's been a little while, but you're going to be seeing a lot more of us. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick. And at 5 Reasons Sports, at some point I'll shave. We got David Eversole here next to me. You can follow me. Yeah, David. Well, this is like 6 weeks. David W. Eversole right next to me. Right, you can follow him there. And we've got David Friedman in his car. You can follow him at Taco About Sports. We are going to do some Dolphins props today, but not for the game against Tampa. We might do those before the game, but preseason, I don't know. You just don't know who's going to play and who's not going to play. But we're going to do some Dolphins offensive individual props today. Remember, the key thing here is use the code 5, F-I-V-E, get your initial deposit matched up to $100. We know NBA season, we get a ton of signups. It's slowed down. Nobody cares about baseball in South Florida, unfortunately. But we're back, okay? We're back. We're going to be doing NFL stuff all the time. Use that code 5. You can download this from the Google Play Store, from the Apple App Store, or just go to PrizePicks.com. You use that code, and you will get your initial deposit matched up to $100. It's free money, so give it a shot. All right, let's get to it. We're going to go through the offensive players here first. I'm actually going to go to you first, Friedman, because you want to talk about the guy everybody wants to talk about.
Who's that?
Tua. I don't know. Teddy Bridgewater.
That guy. Yeah. Tua, right? So, obviously everything is based on the Mike McDaniels offense. I kind of correlate everything. I look back to San Francisco last year and the last couple of years when I'm really breaking down like what I think is going to happen here. Just going back to last year, and look, Jimmy Garoppolo plays like a similar game. It's just we expect Tua to be like a more accurate, he can do a little bit more, right? So, just to give you an idea, like in 16 games last year, Jimmy Garoppolo had 441 attempts, 10 yards, right? Tua had 6 less played games, and he only had like 50 less attempts. The yardage looks on par. He had about 1,200 less yards. I think there's a lot on the table. There's a lot on the bone for Tua with, the upgrade in weapons. And, you're not necessarily worried about it like from the receiver aspect where they're not going to get receptions. Tua's going to have a lot of options to dump the ball off short and have them run a bunch of yards, right? That's the general idea with this team. Running back, Mostert, all that. So I'm going to go over yardage on Tua. I think, based on, I think it's around like 39 something, right? Yeah, 39.50.
39.50.
Jimmy was at like 38.10 last year with Debo and IU, Kittle. I mean, I think there should be an upgraded version of that, right? So if he's not over that number, I think we're in trouble.
And remember, 17 games. The key, so you're looking at about 230 yards per game, which is attainable. But the only question is, does he play 17? I think that's where it gets tricky, because I do think if he's healthy, he's 4,000 yards. But I can see a Bridgewater sequence for 3 games this year.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
I'm just saying. I mean, how many guys play all 17? That's the first thing. So that's why the passing numbers they make me nervous, even though I would play him over individually in most games. I think that's the only thing you've got to project. But if I was to have to go over under, I'd go over. But I'm going to go under on something else with the passing game here, because by the way, the running backs are not on the board yet. The Dolphins backs, so I think they're kind of figuring out too who the primary back is going to be. There are 3 options, really 2 options, but 2.5 options, I think. So they're not really sure about that yet. The 2 primary receivers are on the board, although they have not updated Tyreek Hill's jersey number right now. But I didn't go with yardage though. I went with receptions. I'm over there with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I love both of them, and I saw that one of the Bucs corners said today that there's no duo like this in the league. I agree with that. But I think that the Dolphins are going to spread the ball out a little more. 87.5 receptions, that's a lot. Again, you're assuming that both guys stay healthy the whole time. 17 games, you're talking about what, a little over 5 receptions per game each. And I know that we've got, Eversole is going to talk about somebody else here who's going to be involved in the passing game. They've also got Cedric Wilson that they picked up. Maybe Mohamed Sanu gets in the mix. They're going to throw to their backs. I know they're going to throw the ball a lot. There's going to be a lot of short stuff. And I think people are projecting Waddle with a lot of receptions because he had him last year. But I think Waddle's yards are going to go up. I think his reception number is going to go down. And I think they're going to get Tyreek and Waddle involved as running backs too, or as reverses, trick plays. They're going to get him the ball lots of different ways that are not necessarily the forward pass. So I'm actually going to go under on both 87.5 receptions. I'm not saying they're not going to be great, but I could see them both in the 70s, one in the 70s, one in the 60s with a ton of yards, plus rushing yards, return yards, all that stuff. That's a lot of receptions. I'm
gonna give you some numbers afterwards because I want to kind of break that down when Dave is done too.
Okay, go ahead, David. You jump in and then we'll do it.
Yeah, kind of playing off both of those things you talked about in terms of the long-term season projections with Tua, and then obviously with the number of receptions going around between Waddle and Hill. I think somebody that's still going to be pretty consistently used is going to be Mike Gesicki. I really liked his number. I thought this number was super low for him, 600.5 receiving yards for the season. Last year, he had 780 yards and was third in the NFL for tight end targets at 112. And George Kittle, in only 14 games last year with Mike McDaniel as a coordinator, had 94 targets. So I'm looking at Gesicki getting probably around that 90 to 100 target range. And I think he can easily smash this 600.5 receiving yard projection. I just think that's a really, really favorable number for Gesicki. So given that the short passing game is going to be something prevalent that we're going to see this year, I think Gesicki, with all the attention being focused on Waddle and Hill, is going to have plenty of room to roam over the middle with those short intermediary routes. So I'm looking for a big year from Gesicki in a variety of ways.
And again, that's fewer than 40 receiving yards per game, provided that he plays all of them. So that seems like a fairly easy number.
He's been durable, knock on wood. He's only missed 4 games in his career.
And he's looking for a new long-term contract, too. So that's the other part. I know they like Hunter Long, which is one of the reasons they traded Adam Shaheen, but still Gesicki is the guy there. Again, use the code 5. But David Friedman, you had something else here?
Yeah, like I said, I go back to the 49ers offense, and I just look at it to kind of get a feel for what I can anticipate, right? And going to both of your picks, like I like the under on the receivers and kind of the over if you're going to go anywhere with the tight end. I mean, going back to last year, Debo had 77 receptions, Kittle had 71, Ayuk 56. Mm-hmm. The number that kind of stands out to me the most, and this isn't really necessarily going to play on a futures thing for the Dolphins, Juszczyk had 30 receptions for them last year, and I think that's what everyone's kind of overlooking is the fullback. I think Ingles he's going to be heavily involved, and that's why I go back to the passing game and all that. But it's hard to not feel a little nervous on the overs on the receivers for the receptions and yards. Gesicki is that one guy. Like, you can't imagine that they're going to change much with the Kittle role, and Kittle's more of a blocker too. So, there might be more on the bone for him too.
My general rule on all these, and this plays into it, I know you went over on Tua, and I probably would also. My general rule on all these futures is go under, because, I mean, an injury blows it up. I mean, it seems like these futures are set up for a 16 or 17 game season, and how many guys play 16 or 17 games? Not many. So, and that doesn't even account for what, I mean, again, Dolphin fans can't expect this, but what if the Dolphins have clinched a spot by the end of week 16? They don't need to play week 17, or the other way. I think with the futures, I think you're going to be right 60 to 70% of the time playing the unders. I'm with Friedman that if I was go over on one guy, it would be Tua. I think we're headed for a breakout here.
And I would stay, look, even like other teams, running backs, things like that, positions that are high risk injury wise, like under, right? But if the Dolphins have the opportunity to clinch a spot and not play guys, take my money. I don't care. Like, shit. Do it.
Let me ask you guys one more before we go. Again, use the code 5 FIVE. If the backs pop up here on the board here, let's say Chase Edmonds or Raheem Mostert come in at, say, 550 rushing yards. Let's give that as a number for each of them, because they might be a total yards figure. You go over or under, or you just don't play it. Don't play it.
Yeah, that scares me. Yeah, I just think there's too many guys to get involved. But with Gesicki, I just think his target, I mean, he's the alpha tight end by leaps and bounds, so that he's going to get the majority of the tight end target share. But the other guys, the target share is a little bit more up in the air. I think you're going to see game to game and matchup to matchup, maybe targeting specific guys based on that weekly matchup and the defense that they're facing. And, like you said, the long-term projections are just so hard on the skill guys when one bad game or one injury can kind of throw the whole season out of whack.
The thing with the running backs, right? You're talking about, like, you can't predict the injury stuff, right? But when you look at, again, the 49ers, it's similar in a sense to like what the Patriots do, where it's not just one guy. It's whoever's running the best at that time. I mean, you saw Jeff Wilson, you saw Mostert. You've seen all these guys step in and do the same thing, and I kind of compare it to like the Broncos with Shanahan back in the day when they used to be able to put anybody in there and run the ball.
Yeah.
And I think, if it was a team rushing thing, great. You like Mostert on a weekly basis, he could go off for 200 yards. But he's like, he gets hurt a lot,
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, I'm looking here at the board before we close, and like I'm looking at Saquon Barkley at 875 yards and a half, and I wouldn't touch that. I would not. I mean, I'd go under if I was going to do anything, but he's indicative of what we see with running backs year to year, the injuries. The running back leaderboard for rushing is always different every year. And that's why, again, I would, if you see high numbers, I would play them under. We'll get into some more general NFL. I mean, Cam Akers there at 925 and a half. Anybody think he's staying healthy? All right, so we'll get into all of those as we go forward, but our Dolphins props: over on Tua yardage for the season, under on Waddle and Hill receptions, over on Gesicki yards. Make sure you're using that code 5, and we'll be back with you soon.